All right, jumping into game number 1 over here. It's going to be the neutral map. Home maps, as a bit of a side note, will be Highview and Mountain Clearing once we get to game number 2 and 3. For LucifroN, this story is about making it into the top 2 so that he gets 2 bye rounds. And for Wham, it's about contesting that 4th spot for 1 bye round in the playoffs.
All right, well, we are here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1 between LucifroN and Wham. Both of these guys have got numbers in their name, LucifroN 7, Wham 01. But you know what? I don't know anybody else named LucifroN, and I don't know anybody else named Wham, or at least any Age of Empires 4 players named Wham. So I reckon we can just drop the numbers and we'll call them by their letters. What do you reckon, Lidakor?
That's an interesting idea. Now, speaking of interesting, there is a very intriguing stat when it comes to these two players. These guys have played against each other 4 times this year in tournaments. LucifroN leads 4-0, and Wham hasn't won a single game this year. That
is not a good statistic to come into, but what's going on right now? Hold on, I got to turn my lights back on because we've hello. We've lost you guys, so we'll be coming back. Don't worry. It looks like there's been a few Fs out in the chat right now.
It's a semi-F, okay?
It's a semi-F, yes, because we're still technically here. I mean, I'm sitting a little bit more comfy. You can probably see I'm sitting back in the chair. So yeah, it's a semi-F. Well, I guess you could say it's a semi-FF. Vodka has just reported in. I believe he's posting from his mobile phone, and he says computer has crashed, starting it again. The reason why I think it's from his mobile phone, Lidakor, because the first letter is capitalized. No one writes the first letter capitalized on Discord unless it's from a mobile phone.
Or unless, you just go into a school where they actually teach you how to form sentences.
Why would I need sentence when I have Anonymous gifting 20 tier 1 subs? Anonymous? I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from, Anonymous, but I will thank you. And I will appreciate you. Thank you, my friend. I'm impressed that Anonymous is just out here gifting tier 1s over to EGC TV's community, helping out with the fellas. Thank you very much. I know that I did see some people complaining about ads in the last game, and it happens. Sometimes you got to remember that we can't control when the ads roll on Twitch. The ads will just roll. But one of the ways that you can stop that from happening is by having a subscription. So Anonymous is going to be helping out 20 of the community's finest with that one. So thank you very much, Anonymous.
Indeed, thank you so much, everybody, for all your support throughout the streams here. We'll get you back into the game in a matter of seconds.
I probably need to learn that whole quote, because that's such an amazing quote. The I have the particular skill set one. I don't. What's my skill set? I mean, I'm very good at drinking Red Bull. That's not really a skill.
You're good at casting. Come on.
I prefer more meme kind of things, but indeed, that will work. So we're going to be diving back into this game. We'll be probably jumping in a little bit behind where we were once before. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to game number 3. We're here for a redo as players have now re-entered the lobby. Not really. We've re-entered the lobby, and now the players will continue playing from where they once were, and we'll be following along. So I guess let's get into it. We've got 2 of the world's finest here fighting for you. LucifroN 7, Wham 01. They got numbers in their names. We're getting rid of them. And you were going to tell us a little bit about numbers, Lidakor. You mentioned that these 2 guys have faced off against each other this year 4 times previously. How many times has Wham won?
0. That's the big number indeed. Before the remake, we were talking about this. This year, LucifroN is 4-0 against Wham in terms of sets, and he's 8-0 when it comes to games. Now, that's just half of the story, Aussie, because that crash that we had, it kind of made me stop my point on this. Because if you go back to 2022, Wham 01 is 5-0 against LucifroN. So, something happened on December 31st, 2022, that just said, look, LucifroN, from now on, you win against Wham. And Wham is yet to break that streak.
I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, remember how there was those doomsday prophecies where it's like, on the 21st of December, 2022, there will be an event. Wham 01 will lose to LucifroN 7 for the rest of his life. And that's essentially what we've had with this. I was trying to think of exactly what... I think it was at the Mayan calendar. That's probably what I was thinking about, the Mayan calendar. But it definitely feels that way. You know, what has happened at that time that now it's swayed? Because I feel like both of these players were obviously incredibly strong before the new year. Still very strong after the new year as well. Is it just that the meta's shifted a little bit? I will say, I feel like LucifroN has increased in his power ranking. If I was going to rank him before the end of last year, I would have said, like, you know, he's in my top 5, but I've got 15 guys in my top 5, so that's not really saying much, but he's definitely up there. Whereas now it's like he's actually top 5.
He is. In fact, right now he's the 3rd in placement in the league. He's just behind Marine Lord and Beastie. And when it comes to the discrepancy between Beastie and himself, Beastie is leading just by 1 map advantage. Both of them play 12 sets. Both of them have won 10 of those 12 sets. Beastie has a 21-6 win-loss ratio on maps. LucifroN is only behind by 1 spot because he's sitting at 20-6. So it's very close between these two players. And in the playoff structure that we have for the Elite Classic, the first 2 players will go directly into the semifinals. So for LucifroN, this set is about contesting Beastie's spot in that top 2 and essentially securing an extra round of rest and an extra round of just bye, you know, in the entire playoff structure.
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of different elements, because we often think as like rest as this thing. But it's also, you know, research is another big part of it. Being able to watch the game, being able to be comfortable, sit there, understand what your enemy's doing, that sort of thing. Like, it's a huge advantage to have.
It is. And it's also simply the fact that you don't have to play 2 rounds. You start from the semifinals, which already guarantees a larger share of the prize pool. It already guarantees that you're in the top 4 of the tournament without having to do much, actually.
Yeah, and that's where you want to be, right? You don't want to be doing too much work, and you want to be getting a good payout for it. I mean, to be fair, these guys are having to put in a lot of effort in these fights, that is for sure, especially some of those earlier games. They were difficult games, to say the least, but we do see the age ups now coming through. It's going to be the military wing that Wham opens up with. Definitely not a common opening here, but he's going to be looking to put some pressure out on the map with this. Going to be looking to deny any kind of space that LucifroN looks to try and make early on. Where do you think he goes with this? As we've actually seen a bit of a change up in the way that LucifroN's playing, as he's gone for 3 scholars on this opening with the Delhi.
All right. Could actually look to try and contest all 3 sacred sites and just say, okay, you cannot be everywhere at once. It's going to be interesting to see. It looks like all of them are garrisoned just now. So he's going to try and get, obviously, he's going to try and get Sanctity first. But once he's got Sanctity, I could see all 3 of those scholars disperse, one heading to each sacred site, and just say, well, Wham, you got spears, you got the archers. You will probably deny one of these 3 sacred sites, but not all 3.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. There's, I think that's my favorite thing about the Delhi Sultanate. If you can manage to find a way to put 3 scholars into your build order, and then take Sanctity, and then as soon as Sanctity finishes, you have boom, 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 all 3 of those sacred sites being captured at the same time. It's so chaotic to try and deal with that. But we are going to see that pressure now coming out from Wham. Behind this, he's going to be taking a second town center. We saw this build popularized by Don Artie, something that he was doing, going for that early military wing, going for the second town center behind it. It's always hard trying to justify a town center when you don't have to, when you have to pay full price for it, though, don't you think?
Yeah, obviously. It's like life, you know. Anytime you have to pay full price for something, it's hard to justify it. You always want to buy it on sale, right?
Exactly. You know, whenever Red Bull goes on sale, I buy lots of it. And whenever I pay full price, I feel like a schmuck, right? But I reckon Wham, he's probably not feeling like too much of a schmuck right now. He's got units out. He's defending his little town center. And I guess the point I'm curious about is the numbers here for LucifroN are going to start to spike, right? We can already see he's up to 5 archers. He's going to be working on that 6 archer now. That's not going to be enough. What Wham's got's not going to be enough to hold off what LucifroN's throwing down. So Wham will have to move into units. But has he bought himself enough space with this? Because the Delhi aren't particularly fast out of the gate.
What I'm worried about for Wham right now is access to food. In fact, access to berries. He's got a lot of sheep to work with, but if he loses this position, he will lose the berries close to his starting TC, and he will also lose these berries right next to that expansion TC. And once that happens, he isn't going to last very long confined into his base. And you can expect LucifroN to start walling in these sacred sites soon, and once that happens, he's going to focus all his attention on just shutting down Wham's food eco. This is a danger that Wham has to be prepped for, and he's yet to really get something out that deals with those archers.
Yeah, I mean, he does have those berries up towards the north, though he hasn't scouted them out, but look at this aggression coming through. Excuse me, Wham, you're going to need to wake up, sir. That's 2 villagers that have gone down, and you might lose a 3rd one here if you're not lucky. Indeed, you were not. And so that's going to be 3 villagers going down so early, when realistically, like, this was a pretty big unforced error. I got to say right now, losing 3 vills this early, it feels like a massive mistake.
It's a huge deal. Especially because this happens before the Abbasid eco kicks in. So losing these 3 villagers right now is substantially more problematic than what it would have been, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes from now on. So yeah, that's a big win for LucifroN. He actually has the villager lead with the deli against the Abbasids. Now he's going to clean up these archers in the middle. Sacred sites being taken. So far, every sign is pointing towards LucifroN having a great advantage here, despite the fact that it looks like he will lose 1 scholar.
Yeah, so he loses the 1 scholar on the south sacred site, but it's important to remember, even though it is 130 gold, it's about what's the word I'm looking for? But basically, the risk that he had by sending that scholar out there is mitigated by the fact that he also sent scholars to the other sacred sites, and he's captured 2 of them, which means that in 30 seconds he's going to have more than enough gold to rebuild that scholar. So the real loss here, it's an opportunity cost by coming out here. If he doesn't go for this, I mean, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So I think just by going here and being here, he's forced Wham to defend that in the first place, and that allows him to capture the other 2 sites. So I think this is really well played.
It is. Wham cannot be everywhere at once. Now he's got horsemen, so he's got the mobility advantage. But before that, it was spears, it was archers. So as you said, if you just send out 1 scholar and you lose it, it's a disaster. You send out 3, sure enough you use 1, but you will secure the other 2 sacred sites, which makes up for the loss that you've suffered.
All right, well, we can see the numbers now starting to build for Wham, or for LucifroN, rather. Expect him to start walling up these sacred sites soon. He's got some pretty decent infantry numbers here, and that's normally the next step that you expect to see now that he's capturing up this 3rd sacred site. Now, remember, he's not going for a sacred victory at this point, but rather he's just using the gold that he's getting from these sacred sites and leveraging it to go Castle Age, and once he gets to Castle Age, to actually make units. So we can see that he's going to be hitting a key timing here, and he just wants to make sure that he's not making a huge amount of units. I think that's really key, is that you've got to know when to hold them, you've got to know when to fold them, and it definitely seems like he is holding them at the moment, and we can see he's working towards that Castle Age. He's about to click up, in fact.
That's crazy timing. It's it's actually a sub 10-minute landmark placement for him. Just tells you how good of a timing he has. Well, as I'm jinxing him, it looks like he's lacking a bit of a gold, so that landmark will be placed just after 10 minutes here. But as you said, it's a great timing for him. He's going to get harassed back at home a tiny bit, but he will have the landmark going. It's going to be the compound of the defender, as you would expect. And that's where the deli once again starts rolling. Now that you can start researching village fortresses early, now that you can start playing around those cheap keeps, he can actually start cutting into that villager deficit once he gets to, like, that mid-Castle Age stage.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's 100% expected that he'd be going into the compound of the defender. And now that the sacred site is approaching, and the sacred victory is approaching, he can actually look to play around this. If he's able to get men-at-arms out onto the field, he'll be able to hold sacred sites for quite a long time. But we do see that there's a little bit of a window here to deny this from him. Ideally, Wham wants to avoid the sacred site timer ticking, because it's just one of those things where it's like you don't want to give them the opportunity for it. You want to try and delay it as much as possible because you've got that second town center. It's going to take time before it pays off. And there's so many different levels to the Delhi Sultanate. Now, you know, you've got to get rid of these sacred sites, and then you've got to deal with the relics as well. And then on top of that, now they've got village fortresses to throw at you. There's so many different things that they've got in their repertoire.
10 minutes feels like a long time, as you said, when it comes to those sacred sites. But if you neglect them for 3 or 4 minutes, as you said, it's going to be a problem. So that's the reason why he's just trying to challenge these. Looks like a big fight here in the middle. Numbers looking decent on both sides. Horsemen trying a wraparound on the archers, but Spearmen haven't really been focused down just yet, and they do a lot of damage to these horses.
He's getting really good value from these spears. You can see that still there's a spearman that remains out for the moment. So Wham having a little bit of trouble with the spears, but now the knights are on the field. This is where it quickly starts to turn in favor of the Delhi Sultanate. Of course, having access to those armored units means that it's going to be a lot more difficult to take them out. On top of that, they do a lot more damage than your standard trash units from the feudal age. So where I'm going to be looking to defend here might be moving into some spears, but for the moment, it just looks like it's going to be archers and horsemen really struggling to deal with this. And expect to see pressure starting to be applied on all areas of the map here. Of course, LucifroN, no slouch when it comes to micro. Definitely no slouch to multitasking.
Yeah, he took this trade over here just so that he can buy himself some map control. Also, keep in mind, he still has all the sacred sites under his control. We're down to 8.5 minutes. Lancers are now making an appearance. And that's where it gets dicey for Wham. His army is looking a little feeble right now compared to what his opponent has. And these archers, they're completely undefended over here. Even a single Lancer could do so much damage.
What's really impressive to me is the fact that LucifroN never walled the sacred sites. He's just using units to hold them. And that's really difficult to do and age up at the same time. He has managed to just absolutely identify how many units he needed to hold, get to Lancers, and then bring those out and hold with those instead. It's like, it's such a... It might seem like, oh, it's such a simple thing. This is incredibly difficult to analyze and to understand exactly how much greed you can get away with. And he's managed to do it perfectly, and I think that's going to be rewarded to him here. I mean, how does Wham deal with this? He's starting to get spears out at this point, but the Lancer numbers are just so thick right now. It's really difficult to deal with.
It is. It looks like a couple of Lancers will be caught here, though, so at least there is that for Wham. Managed to get 4 Lancers picked if he picks this one as well. But the sacred sites are still under the control of LucifroN. Archers are still there. And you see those Castle Age techs, they're slowly creeping in. That's going to give an even bigger eco buff to LucifroN. Only thing to consider for him is that Wham is buffing up that villager count. He's getting close to Castle Age. So LucifroN still needs to be cautious over here because Abbasids are slowly coming online.
And that's what you got to be careful of. I mean, if the game goes late, it's always going to be in favor of the Abbasid. But there are a couple of things that are going to be going in favor of LucifroN in the short term. And most importantly, he's picked up relics. So not only does he have those sacred sites ticking, but he's also got the relics under his control. He's picked up 4 so far. The 5th one, it's on the enemy side of the map and still uncontested, but there is a knight in the vicinity. But after that, you've also got to start thinking about village fortresses, which is, well, as you can see, about halfway done at the moment.
Yep, and once that's done, that's where LucifroN can really start catching up in the villager department. And that's where it gets very difficult for Wham to do any eco damage, because from that point on, you will have all your farmers, your lumberjacks, and whatever guarded by castles.
Yeah, it's gonna start to really unfold here. What's interesting though is that Wham is going for the eco wing here, so not going for the culture wing and looking for a potential Imperial Avenue. Instead, going to be going eco wing, which to me signals that he's confident that he's going to be able to take a sacred site off LucifroN here. Let's see if he's actually able to do it though, because the numbers are starting to look more and more in favor for LucifroN here as the knight numbers are going to start coming up. And once these knight numbers reach their critical mass, they're going to be barreling down upon all of these archers. And you can see that even despite these archer numbers being out here, he's unable to contest the sacred sites.
It's only so 6 minutes on a timer. It's getting closer and closer. In fact, if you're LucifroN, you will start thinking about walling in 2 of those sacred sites on the flanks so you can focus all your attention towards the middle. I think he has already dropped 1 keep, and there's a second one coming already for LucifroN. Yeah, there's the first keep that has just been placed on the right side, and the second keep will likely be in the middle.
Yeah, this is starting to get a little bit worrying, because when those keeps go down, now all of a sudden you need to... Oh my god, that is a big wall. You need to have an answer for those keeps, right? And it's not easy getting an answer. You can go to battering rams, sure, but it's a lot of wood. You can think about trebuchets, but now you've got to defend them. I mean, you can just try and avoid them, but obviously it's a keep. It's difficult to deal with. And Wham is now up to that castle age, and we see Tier 2 gets activated at the same time. Is he going to be able to hold this?
It's tricky, right? He's distracting his opponent right now with the Lancers, and this is something that Wham has to respect. He can't just charge out, try to recap the sacred sites, while his villagers are getting massacred, and you see not enough space in those DCs. Villagers do have to flee. Beautiful formation shuffle to get away from that. And given the circumstances, he has done a terrific job saving the villagers as the caster curse kicks in, loses a bunch.
The classic caster curse comes through. But we do see the Spearman numbers still holding for the moment. But once again, I mean, the elephant in the room, quite literally, is that the Delhi Sultanate is holding these 3 sacred sites. He's already held them for 5 minutes. In fact, it's been longer than 5 minutes now. And there are keeps that are going up on every single one of those sacred sites, which now make it more difficult for you to challenge those individually. He's managed to create a nice little star on the south side here. But this is a tough spot for Wham to attack into. And you mentioned earlier that LucifroN has won every single set these guys have played so far in the year 2023. There's a good chance he wins this one as well, at least judging by how this first game is going.
Well, this is only game number 1, though, so let's hold our horses for the time being, but it's looking good for him. 4 minutes, 20 seconds left on the clock. He's taking a fight over here as the 3rd keep is going up. He might be willing to take a suboptimal engagement over here to facilitate that castle being finished. And it looks like he will. He's actually going to sacrifice some of his archers. A couple of lancers will also go down, but he will get the keep up on all 3 sacred sites.
That's going to be so difficult for Wham to deny. Even at the moment, you can see that he's got no units that are going to help support taking out those keeps. Sure, he's got, you know, the option for something like siege engineering. Well, he doesn't even need it. His Abbasid dynasty. He's already got the ability to unlock those rams. But, I mean, realistically, you'll want to be moving into something like trebuchets. How do you take this sacred site off LucifroN when there's keeps up here now?
I think it's got to be rams. It's got to be rams at this point. Question is, can he defend those rams? Because that timer is getting very close. You see boiling oil now a thing, or soon be a thing, for LucifroN Castle, getting close to being denied, but I think it's just going up.
It's going to be close. Lord Doubt does not smile today. Instead, he cries as the keep goes up, and the Lancers are going to be happily defending this sacred site from the onslaught of enemy units. You can see him trying his best to chase them down now. The Camels on the front line, they're going to do their best to deal with these Lancers, but the numbers here are starting to look a little bit thin for LucifroN. Remember, he's got a lot of factors ticking towards his success here. One of those is not villager count. You can see he's down 25 villagers at the moment. He does have the sacred sites. He does have the relics in his possession. And now he is online with his keeps. Those are going to be able to utilize their village fortress upgrade. And he will be able to catch up on that villager count, but it's going to take time before he gets there.
He's taking decent engagements over here. He's got composite bows on those archers, focusing down the knights. But the timer is ticking very fast now, Aussie. 2 minutes, 30 seconds left on the clock, and he's yet to contest any of these sacred sites.
Yeah, this is... he's leaving it a little bit short, isn't he? And now the numbers are really starting to fall. You can see 24 archers remain, a couple of crossbows in there as well, but you've got to remember that this is exactly what LucifroN wants, right? Like, the bigger the army is, the more likely that the challenge on the sacred site is successful. The smaller it is, then the more impact a keep is going to have. Because the keep obviously does a specific amount of damage, and the bigger the army is, then, you know, it's a smaller percentage of that army. Whereas if the numbers are smaller, it's going to have such a great impact. So by trading out like this constantly, it just basically forces Wham into this position where he can't really challenge the sacred sites. Still doesn't have the numbers. At this point, we're less than 2 minutes away from victory here.
Yeah, this is getting very bad for Wham here. As you said, he doesn't really have the numbers to challenge those sacred sites, and LucifroN also walled these up. At this point, LucifroN is probably close to saying, okay, I'm willing to give up on my starting base, because now it's all about the sacred sites. 1.5 minutes left to go, and you see, even if Wham wanted to just kind of suicide push one of those sacred sites with the archers, he cannot do that without siege, because they're all walled off.
Yeah, this is starting to look a little bit concerning now, that still those archer numbers are high, but we've finally got rams coming through for Wham. It's going to be 4 rams now being made, but he's got a minute left to challenge this. He's going to have to stand on the sacred site. He's going to have to batter down the hatches on that ram, and he's going to have to thank somebody, because...
Wait a minute, though. Look at the rams knocking on those walls. I think he might have its momentum. Look at this. No one on that sacred site. Villagers will be pulled.
But the villagers are too late. The rams will get onto the sacred site, and you can see he deletes the wall. He's going to instead bring villagers himself, so Wham going to be looking to hold this out. But we've got ourselves a little bit of a danger game coming through. If the villagers had made it onto the sacred site before the ram went down, it would be a different story. But they didn't. And the fact that Wham stepped on the sacred site means that the sacred site timer is held. You can see it's at 44 seconds at the moment. He's sieging down those rams. The keeps are going to be working down the villages as well, but we can see the next layer of walls has been taken out, but the battering rams don't move into block. Instead, they get knocked out. And now all of a sudden, you've got a bit of a difficult spot because the keeper's taken out all the units on the sacred site, and that timer is about to restart. 3, 2, 1. Oh, the villagers, no, 44 seconds, he's still holding, it's still at 44 seconds. There's a unit on the sacred site somewhere. Is it the battering ram? I don't know exactly what happened right there, but still the sacred victory is approaching at 44 seconds, and now the knights are coming through, and you can see LucifroN is sending out plenty of units towards it, but a mangonel's coming through. Hold your horses, Lidakor. We might have ourselves a game.
Oh, LucifroN, he needs to hold this, but now Mangon was there. Beautiful volley. And there is just nothing left for LucifroN. He's at 15 army, 55 vills. He's going to pull the villagers, but it's too late. He's losing the sacred site, and Wham looks like he's going to take this game.
No way. There is no way he does this with that little time left on it. The villagers now coming out. You can see them trying to take out the mangonel, but the big shot comes in from the top rope. Randy Orton is looking solid with that RKO. He continues holding. He's got to make sure he brings more units onto this sacred site. You cannot let this sacred site go. He has to stand on it. He has to contest it. He needs to keep rallying units, and you can see he's making plenty. Told. Wham is victorious in the first game of this set. An incredible upset from a position of almost undeniable disadvantage. He comes out on top and brings out a massive victory in this first game. What the hell?
What a play from Wham, and you gotta credit LucifroN for the defense. He made some sick quick calls happen to keep the knights out, but those rams came in just in time for Wham. They broke through the walls, and don't forget the first battering ram that moved in. That was the game changer. It started decapping the sacred site, and from that point on, the timer stopped, buying Wham the time he needed. What a game, Aussie. This is the first game this year that Wham has won against LucifroN, and it was a spectacle.
Yeah, that was really something, you know. And I think it's important to highlight a great utilization of in-game mechanics there, because I still think there's not a lot of people who really acknowledge the way that sacred site interactions work. So just to explain a little bit about what happened there, for those who don't understand or might not know about the minutiae of it. With the sacred site, that timer is going to keep ticking down and down until someone steps their foot on that sacred site, the enemy normally. And once the enemy steps on that sacred site, it's going to take 30 seconds before the decap happens. And if during that timer, you step on your own sacred site and say, hey, stop decapping my sacred site, the timer will pause. So it will remain paused, but so will the decap. However, if you step on your sacred site first, and then the enemy steps on your sacred site, it's not going to get decapped. And it's also going to keep the timer ticking. So in that situation, had LucifroN gotten those villagers onto the sacred site even 2 seconds earlier than what he did, we would not be looking at a Wham 1-0. We'd be looking at a LucifroN 1-0. That's the difference that those 2 seconds made. So very, very well played there by Wham, managing to get onto the sacred site just slightly earlier than LucifroN. And as a result, he's able to pull away a victory there.
And with that, we head to game number 2. It is going to be on the home map of LucifroN. It's Highview again. It's a French versus Rus matchup, something that we have seen before. How do you reckon? Are we going to see something very similar to what we have had, which was heavy playing into multiple 2-3 TCs? Or are we going to see something different from what we have seen in the Demo Marine Lord set?
Yeah, I think that... I mean, this matchup, I mean, we, as you mentioned, we've seen it before today. I reckon we're probably going to see something similar. It's a very safe play style. I love the way that the Kremlin can be utilized to go for quite an aggressive, I say aggressive, quite a greedy build as the Rus. I guess you could call it an aggressively greedy build. And it can be very well utilized against the French on this map. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised that we see the French picked on this map, considering the prevalence of the Rus and the fact that they go into this Kremlin. Really just, you know, when I remember when Age of Empires 4 came out and we were analyzing all the landmarks, we were like, okay, well, French counters the English because the English have double archery range, whereas the French have a stable, and stable counters archery range, right? I feel like it's the same thing that can be said here, in that you've got the Rus that don't technically have a barracks, but they have a spearman unit that they can just call upon at very short notice to help defend them. So it makes me think that perhaps there could be a reassessment of the French on this map, considering how popular the Rus is. But we'll have to wait and see, because we've got that match up to go, and I definitely got to give a favor to LucifroN here.
Jumping into game number 4, or game number 2, actually, we have Wham with a 1-0 lead. For him, it's about contesting that top 4 spot. That would actually secure 1 round of bye for him in the playoffs. Whereas for LucifroN, losing this set would be just disastrous because he would fall behind so much compared to Beastie in the race for that number 2 spot. So he would have to play in the same round as Wham would. That's the round of 6, 1 round before the semifinals. We'll have to see if that happens as we jump into game number 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are here on Highview as we watch 2 of the world's best players prepare for battle. Of course, this map is notorious for the amount of, I was going to say the amount of fauna that it's got on it, but we've got flora and we've got fauna. I guess flora kind of reminds me of a flower, so I think fauna is the correct term, but I don't know. Do you know what's flora? Which one is flora and which one is fauna?
Flora should be the plants, right?
Right. Yeah, well, okay, so that makes sense. So we'll go with fauna. So, yeah, the notorious for the fauna on this map, of course, a lot of wolves here. At least it feels like a lot of wolves. But just generally a really good map for the Rus, right? Like, it's got these big stealth forests that you can hide in and take advantage of because you've got these scouts so you can see everything. On top of that, you've got your hunting cabins, which you can always... We haven't really seen a hunting cabin spam strategy for a while now. I think the last time we saw that was Viper doing that. That was some time ago. Interesting little spot down here for the deer. Take a look how safe this deer pack is. Good luck ever getting a kill on that. Imagine, realistically, this deer pack, you could put a hunting cabin in here, and this is a hunting cabin. You've seen hunting cabins before? This is a hunting cabin. And not only that, you could probably wall it in. Like, think about it. You just throw up a 40 wood wall right there. Boom, you're good. And now you got villagers gathering up 2350 food that are walled in safe from all those knights.
You probably don't even need to wall that hunting cabin itself. You could just go for the wall in front of those 2 forests. I mean, it's so obvious how LucifroN can wall his base. It's very well defendable. He's got a back gold. And really, there's not much that Wham can do against that base layout. This is a 10 out of 10 base for a Rus player. On the other side, it's way more underwhelming, I guess, for Wham. He's got the back gold, which is nice and neat, but his hunts are a lot more exposed, and his right flank is much more open than what you have on the other side for LucifroN. And in a matchup where you could see knights from both players, that could be a massive deficit for Wham to overcome.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to note, now that you talk about wood lines, and it's not a huge thing on this map, because realistically, like, the 2 wood lines that you start with will probably last you to 25 minutes in most circumstances. But take a look at the difference in wood lines between these 2 players. You've got Wham, who spawns with 2 wood lines around his TC, and then a 3rd wood line towards that central sacred site, in the middle of the map. A contested wood line. And then you've got LucifroN, who has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wood lines on his side of the map. And none of these are even close as contested as that one in the middle. LucifroN's got a hell of a wood spawn this game. I don't know what's happened with this seed, but there's a... LucifroN, he's packing wood, let's just say that much. He's got a lot of it over on his side of the map. So he will have no excuses about a lack of archers today. Let's say that much.
That is true. Now, one of the interesting things for this map layout is that the neutral trading post in the southern corner is actually blocked by the forest. Obviously, that's only a very long-term thing for LucifroN, but there is that at least. So this is something that he will need to consider. In fact, he's probably going to have to chop in this direction, because if there is a single map in this tournament that has the tendency of providing very long games, it's probably Highview. So
yeah.
Yeah, so like you have to be prepped for this to a certain extent. You don't want to get into that scenario. Oh! Whoa! There goes one scout.
Very, very painful. He's going to lose a sheep with it, but the big issue is that scout, right? Because now, all of a sudden, I'm going to have to make a new scout. Now, fortunately, he's already got the School of Cavalry, so it shouldn't be too hard for him to do it, but it is a painful loss.
Especially on a map like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you need every little bit of scouting that you can get on a map like this. And I think that's part of the reason why this map tends to go late, is because players are a lot less risk-averse on this map, or a lot more risk-averse. They take a lot less risks. They don't want to be risky. Let's just go with that. I've had trouble with English this cast. I'll say that much. It's a complex language, flora, fauna, all that good stuff. But let's see if we can have a little bit of a check now on LucifroN and see if we can get an update on that bounty. I haven't seen the villagers whether they're glowing, but I would assume he's got more than 100 at this point.
He's got a lot. He has to have a lot. Yep. There it is.
It's a nice number, isn't it? Yeah, 360 bounty. That is a decent amount of bounty to have. I think any Rus player would be happy with that in a 1v1.
Yeah, he went to Feudal Age off the back of that bounty, got Wheelbarrow, and got double products. In fact, he just now got the Spearman upgrade as well. So you could tell just based on the upgrades that he is swimming in gold from that bounty.
Yeah, and expect to see the Horticulture upgrade coming through for him shortly. You can see it's at 94 at the moment. Spears now coming through on that front side. Going to be able to defend against the Knight, and Wham going to be heading back to the drawing board on this occasion. One thing to note, though, where is Wham's second TC? He's not on stone. I see on the minimap, villagers have moved to stone. He's gone for archery range before the second town center here, which is an interesting adaptation. Obviously, we saw this matchup earlier on this map, and we didn't see the archery range coming out first. But I guess there was the one thing to note is that the spears were able to push the French player in that game because the gold mine was forward, and there was no archer response. Whereas here now, Wham's got a back gold, but he's also got those archers out. So a little bit of a delay on the town center, but a little bit safer.
I think a lot comes down to the fact that Wham is not really willing to go very heavy into cavalry. He's got a stable, but he only has a barracks out there that is really using or deploying units. It's only a spearman defense, and when you look at Wham's scouting, he knows fully well that LucifroN's base is well defendable. So if he wants to play any kind of aggression here, it has to happen before those walls come up. So he's going to have to preemptively respond to those spears. And once he has 2 or 3 archers out there, plus a couple of knights, he might be able to delay those walls going up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, well, we start to see those knights now moving around the south side. It might be a bit of a tough timing coming through here for Wham. He is going to have to... He's going to have to find a way through. Those spears are all in position, ready to go. He's got 5 spears out, LucifroN does. So he's done well with the scouting information. On the north side of the map, though, we do see Wham is taking his own TC. So not going to be too far behind. But do we see that third TC coming out for LucifroN? What do you reckon?
I would love to see it. His base is so well defendable. If he's walled, Wham can do very little to punish him for a third TC. And don't forget, he saw the second TC from Wham. So he knows that if it's 2 TCs versus 2 TCs, the French player will pull ahead thanks to the faster working TCs. So there might be... Yeah, there it is. He's moving back to the stone. He knows fully well that if he wants to keep pace in terms of villagers, or dare I say pull ahead, he's going to have to work towards a third TC.
You know, Lidakor, I'm such a greedy player. I love any civilization that can just get away with playing greed. And it really feels like the Rus as a civ can just get away with massive greed at the moment. The Kremlin just allows you to... The flexibility to defend. If you need to call upon units, you've always got them there. And I think that flexibility just allows so much creativity in these greedy builds and allows you to really play to the strengths of greed. So I'm loving this at the moment. Look, don't get me wrong. I don't think I'd ever become a Rus main. There's just something about that scream of the wolf that I just can't stand to hear. But this is fascinating to watch.
Yeah, now hold the phone because Wham also is going for a third town center here. You can see his stone count climbing up. So it's going to be an even-Steven scenario. And I guess if both players go for a third TC, the question becomes, is LucifroN going to consider a fourth one?
You know, there are mitigating returns on additional town centers because once you get to that 130, 140 Vil point, it really starts to fall off quite quickly. I mean, realistically, you could probably do it. Wait, LucifroN's got 365. Oh, I think he's cancelled the TC and now he's replacing it. Okay, that's why I was going to say how many? He's got enough wood for another TC if he wants to. And he spots out the stone that's being taken off the stone. Do we? There's no way. Do we really see a fourth TC?
No, I don't think so. I would actually be surprised. Although, as you said, he saw the stone. On the other side, Wham is yet to see that stone mine. So Wham doesn't actually know, or he's not 100% certain about that next DC coming up. We've got to be careful with the wills here. Looks like War will be taken down, no villagers lost to it. Third DC will be just a tiny bit later for Wham than it is for LucifroN. Both players... Uh-oh, Aussie, that's a problem.
That is a problem. Knights are coming through, though. A couple of archers as well, so the first Vill's gone down. Second Vill going to be losing its life, and it looks like he will get out. He's trying his best to take out that third villager, but the micro comes in. It's not going to matter. The villager gets stuck, and he says, thank you very much, Wham. Yeah, 3 Vills there. It might not seem like much, but it's honest work.
It is. It's a very good value, actually. It's a race towards that eco boom, and every single villager that you can chip away with, it's great value. And look at this. LucifroN isn't even thinking about those small walls used in the forests. He's just walling through the entire map and says, look, this is my third of the map, and I won't let anyone harass my villagers back there. And once those walls go up, Wham is going to be blind to a certain extent, because he won't see the resource distribution or the villager distribution on those resources. He won't see the third DC, and he won't even see into the base of the opponent to see the production buildings coming up. So not only will LucifroN secure his base from those knights, he will also deprive Wham of information.
Yeah, this is starting to look better and better for LucifroN, right? Like, when you're playing these games and you've got that slight advantage and then you get your walls up, it just feels so good because, as you mentioned, you're depriving your enemy of that information that they need to know about your scaling capabilities. Because at this point, Wham's thinking, all right, we're on par here. This is good. You know, we should be a little bit ahead here. But the reality is he's not. He's not even close. LucifroN is ahead by a mile when it comes to their scaling.
He is. Now, one thing I love here with Wham is that he's heading towards Castle Age. You can see him banking up the resources. And given that both players are playing very defensive, little effort to contest map control, he is going to try and win the race for the relics. We talked about this. This map features long games oftentimes. So setting up and getting those relics advantage is probably even more important than it is on other maps.
Yeah, this is true. We can see he's got a pretty good spot over towards that west side, though. He manages to keep one relic locked in behind the wall. The second relic is close by to him as well. But, yeah, expect to see Wham clicking up any second here. We'll be looking to go into that monastery as early as he possibly can. But another counterattack coming out now for LucifroN. Playing this game well. It's looking really good for him on the Rus.
It is. He picked 6 villagers, didn't lose a single one. He still is keeping all those knights alive. He's actually going very heavy into the spearman department as well. Picked off most of those archers, so there is no real predator to those spears. And don't forget, he hasn't used a single Kremlin ticket just yet. He could pop a bunch of militias in a blink of an eye and just gain massive momentum to surprise Wham with.
Yeah, this is also true. All right, well, the Royal Institute's about 50% done, 60% done around that region. He's going to be shortly clicking up. The numbers of knights, not particularly high here, but take a look at those spearmen numbers. That is quite concerning. Up to 20 spears total now, and he begins to push out, realizing that, oh no, there could be some trouble in paradise, and the villagers go for a run, but they manage to find the age up anyway. And now on the defensive, Wham looks to hold on despite hitting that castle age. The timing that's come through from LucifroN here is destructive. Something similar to what we saw in the earlier series, where this timing right as the castle age hits can really cause a lot of havoc. Players are just able to sense that, hey, there's not a lot of units here right now. I think there's an age up coming through. Let's see if I can be annoying. And indeed they can. And LucifroN causes a bit of idle time, but no huge damage done.
Well, you say that, but you see the villager KD, it's 15-0. Quite a few villagers that were stationed on that landmark got caught off guard. There was like 15 to 20 villagers building the landmark. Only 10 could garrison into the TC. Those spearmen chipped away with quite a few, and now you look at LucifroN, he has a villager lead of 9.
How did I miss that? Wow, okay. Matt, you know what? I'm going to blame it on the time. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here, and I'm a little bit sleepy, that sort of thing. That's what I'll blame it on. But look at that. Yeah, that's a hell of a hunting cabin right there. 58 gold a minute.
And you mentioned High Trade House. Look at the northern side. That's where the High Trade House is coming up, and it couldn't get better than that. That's going to be a very juicy one. Maybe if it was right where the relic is at, it would be slightly better, but of course, big and grumpy relic just blocking the perfect spot.
I hope he deletes that hunting cabin. I've always found that even with a hunting cabin like in the vicinity or very close to the high trade house comes out. It's like, yeah, 6 gold. I'll give you 6 gold for the high trade house, sir. Let's have a look and see what it is.
That's ugly.
85 gold. It's not,
yeah,
not
he needs
the best.
To delete. He needs to delete the hunting cabin there.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's like, this is going to be amazing, and then you see it and it's like, and yeah, it's especially on this map as well, where he's got such good forest spawns. I feel like you could have got a banger of a trade house somewhere.
Yeah, probably. In fact, he had some walls out there. I wonder what would have happened if he placed it where the walls are at. It's not like it's gonna be a disaster, but we talked about this numerous times. If this game goes very long, that passive gold income can be a big difference maker.
All right, well, the knight numbers have risen at this point. He's up to 12 knights, but remember that the spear numbers out for LucifroN are looking pretty solid. He's called a whole bunch of militia as well. We see 8 militia out now, so perhaps a little bit of a timing push going to be coming out here for our Rus player.
Yeah, I wonder where Wham's scout is at. Remember, without that scout, he's got limited vision into the stealth forest here, and he could get caught off guard. He lost 1 scout at the beginning of the game. 1 militia is just relentlessly chasing 1 priest over here, but the rest of the militias are now arriving to the right flank, and it looks like we will have a big scuffle over here.
Yeah, the knights were pushing forward, but he's going to fall back for the moment. Archer's going to be able to chase it. Still some decent numbers. It's going to be hard to determine exactly how the positions lie in these stealth forests. Always a bit of a challenge on a map like this, and part of the reason why the games go so long is because people just don't want to fight in stealth forests. It's so damn hard to keep track of all these units coming through. Sometimes you just want to close your eyes and go, Jesus, take the wheel. But unfortunately, at this time, you're going to need more than prayer to save yourself, Wham. You're going to need to get back here, and you're going to need to call upon the units of your...
Does Wham have royal bloodlines? I'm actually wondering. It has been quite a while since he's been in Castle Age, but I'm not sure if he has gotten that. Uh-oh.
Yeah, no royal bloodlines at this point. And to be honest, I mean, what does a little bit of extra health do against all these spears, right? Like, there are so many spears out here, 25 spears. Not to mention the militia that are going to be bolstering that. And now on top of that, we see Boya's Fortitude coming through for LucifroN. LucifroN's position is amazing. Look at it. He's triple the amount of military over the top of Wham.
Yeah, it's not just the militias. In fact, the militias have expired. It's the massive spearmen. And with the archers gone, Wham has nothing against those. And it looks like he will just call it a GG. Off the back of that momentum, LucifroN secures game number 2 and brings us to a decider game in game number 3.
That's going to be it. So that was an impressive performance right there from LucifroN. And I mean, as we saw, just a wonderful timing with those militia. Even though they weren't particularly impactful, they were still a really good insurance policy in that situation. And he was able to do a huge amount of damage early on underneath that town center. We saw that timing attack come through. He took out 15 villagers. If we can take a look at the villager count, though, let's have a look. We've got that. It's the military count. Let's have a look at the economic unit count right now. And I want to see just how many villagers were lost as that age up came through for Wham. Yeah, you can see it right there as the age up comes through. It looks like he drops down from about 74 down to somewhere around that 60 region. All right, well, we move on to game number 3. We'll be heading to the home map of Wham, which is going to be Mountain Clearing. And now things are really starting to heat up in this series. Holy Roman Empire against English. The Giga Chads up against the English.
And it's Mountain Clearing. This is a map that LucifroN has practiced a lot. And it's interesting to talk about that element because a lot of players just simply say, look, I hate this map. I will try to avoid it as much as possible. I'll focus my efforts elsewhere. But LucifroN and Vortex were 2 players in particular who focused a lot of their attention on practicing this map. And I'm genuinely curious how LucifroN is going to play this with the English. Obviously, he's got the option to play into the Dark Age Men-at-Arms. He's got the option to play into the Feudal Age Men-at-Arms. Feudal Age Men-at-Arms, of course, also available for Wham. It's gonna be a banger.
Yeah, to me, it's interesting that he picked up the Holy Roman Empire here, especially when he's got access to the Chinese. We've seen the Chinese be really strong on this map. Of course, a Barbican in the face is always going to be very difficult to stop. But obviously, with LucifroN having access to the English, that's a very decent way to stop a Barbican, is the English. Just because you don't have to worry about those villagers getting on top of the Chinese villagers. You just take them from range. So it's very difficult to Barbican the English. So nice little insurance policy here for LucifroN by going for the English. And then for the Holy Roman Empire, I mean, realistically, Wham's got 2 safe relics. That's about it. But do we expect a Burgrave out of him?
I feel like you first have to get there. Oftentimes the games finish before Castle Age, but if it happens, it's very possible it's going to be the Burgrave. We have seen some Burgrave-based builds before. One of the things that I do recall from one of the previous rounds is playing into a couple of men-at-arms in Feudal Age, just establishing a bit of a map control, but also playing with a bit of a walls back at home. You have those walls set up to make sure you don't get pressured, and then you play that semi-fast castle into the Burgrave and secure the map control, secure the sacred site, and guarantee momentum with the initial 10 men-at-arms in castle. So, yeah, I feel like Burgrave is a realistic possibility here for Wham.
Yeah, I do like it. The one thing to note, and I guess we've seen it develop in this matchup over the last couple of months as the new patch has dropped, is the English Council Hall now has the ability to train crossbows. This is massive in this matchup because there's a very key timing where the English have just hit the Castle Age and the men-at-arms are starting to flood into their base and they're sort of scrambling to get a defense together. And before it was difficult, but now it's easy. Once you hit that critical mass of crossbows, it's all simple sailing, smooth sailing from there.
Indeed, to jump into game number 3 here, Wham and LucifroN, one apiece. It is going to be a decider game between these two. LucifroN trying to challenge that second spot to secure 2 rounds of bye in the playoffs, whereas for Wham, he's working his way towards securing 1 free round for him in the playoffs if he makes it into the top 4. Let's take a look at game number 3 here on Mountain Clearing. Boss champ. Okay, there we go.
All right, we're in. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 3 in your set between LucifroN and Wham. On the south side of the map in the color yellow with a villager pull at the 17-second mark. This is every single villager he's got. He's got 6 villagers coming out now, tanking up the board in the middle of the map here with the scout. I don't think I've ever seen this before, Lidakor. Have you seen this before?
No, I don't recall a single game like that, and I do want to credit his micro. He didn't take a single bit of damage on any of those villagers. He did take a lot of damage on the scout, but on this map you know fully well where your opponent is spawning, so you won't even get anywhere close to his TC. So you don't really need that HP on your scout. And as you said, it's every single villager he had. So it was critical that he keeps all of them alive, especially because Wham, if he plays into Feudal Age aggression, heavily damaged villagers could be exposed in there. So really good micro there by LucifroN. Secures the board for himself. And this is yet to be scouted by Wham.
So what's the point in doing this as the English? So obviously the Holy Roman Empire can't contest this because the English longbows or English bows on the villagers, it's too much damage to even try and heal through with a prelate. They'll just one-shot and or not one-shot, but they'll two-shot the villagers. So I guess what you're doing is you're kind of saying, I don't need to transition to farms as early as what I normally would, because now not only do I have the deer and the sheep, I've also got the boar.
It could be a question of food income. You see right now Wham is on sheep with the HRE. He's got 350 food per minute. LucifroN, the exact same being on the boar. Now, if Wham were to move on the deer and boost those villagers with the prelate, he would still have a better food income. But I think this is a matter of keeping pace with Wham's food eco with the HRE. Also, helps a lot that you have that forward position. We could see a tower early on to secure that position, extend the network of castles aura. So I feel like the reason why I love this is because it gives you so many things, but most importantly, you don't feel like you're falling behind economically compared to the HRE, here at least in Dark Age.
This is an impressively quick age up time considering he's gone for a boar, right? Like a normal age up time for the English is between 2 minutes and 12 to 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That's pretty much the fastest age up time that you can do. So the fact that he hit this around the 2-minute 20 mark is really impressive. Now, granted, he hasn't gone for your big upgrades that you normally see. Like sometimes when people look to get that mill out early on, get the boar or the hunt taken, they will go for survival techniques, but it does slow you down a fair bit. He hasn't opted for that today. Instead, just playing it straight.
Well, he hasn't opted for it just yet, but it could be a thing to consider once he gets into Feudal Age. And you see the idea behind the boar here. He went into Feudal Age essentially at the same time as an HRE player did, which is remarkable for an economy that is not being boosted by a prelate.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when the age up comes through. This is one of the fastest council halls you're going to see. Look at the timing on this. We're at 3 minutes 30. He's almost finished that bad boy. I guess one of the things we haven't talked about yet is have a look at this Archon Chapel. Can you name anything more beautiful than an Archon Chapel that hits a large gold vein, a double forest, a deer pack, and the town center? Are you serious? If there's ever been a 10 out of 10 Archon Chapel, that is it right there. That's glorious.
That's a lovely spot. It looks like it's going to be a stable build here for Wham. On the other side, LucifroN does not have a barracks, so he doesn't have any spearmen working for him. This is where having those villagers all being full HP at the middle comes into play. If any of these villagers were damaged, Wham could easily yoink 1 or 2 of those, even if the villagers fight back. Now with full HP, 1 or 2 horsemen are insufficient, and by the time Wham has enough to really contest that, I think LucifroN will be done taking the boar.
Can we have a look how much health the boar, or how much food the boar's got left on it? Because at this point, I feel like the boar should probably have, what, almost, you reckon 500? I was going to say like around 800, somewhere around that. Oh, there you go, yeah, 500. So, yeah, not too much to go on it. Longbow's immediately unpacking, but not a lot of damage. It doesn't look as exciting as what I thought it was going to be. He's going to surround it. You can see he's trying to get the shivs out, but he's got to fight with the bows. He's got no choice. And that villager on the backside, he's going to try and take it out, coming through, hitting it with the scout together. So might be able to pick up one villager here. Manages to get the longbow out as well. And indeed, the Vil goes down, but he's going to sacrifice the early horseman for it. But I tell you what, that's a pretty decent trade. I'd be happy to take that trade as Wham.
Yeah, you are happy. Especially because you forced a lot of idle time. Those villagers on the board have not been gathering for a while. And I wonder if LucifroN will remain in that position for a lot longer. He could abandon the board, but it feels like he really wants to take every bit of food out of it. We'll see where this goes, but he's yet to build a tower in the middle, and he's yet to get the first spearman to the middle. It's just now arriving.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a slow start, even though he managed to get the council hall up at, what was it, 340 or something like that.
Yeah, something along those lines, but Wham is forced to go into ranges, so he's going to play into archers and horsemen. And one of the things to consider here for LucifroN is that he's got a very safe and compact base with a lot of resources inside. He's yet to touch his sheep, he's got a lot of hunt, back gold, so at any time when he falls back from the board, he could just turtle and try to rush Castle Age. I'm actually curious if Wham will try to beat him to Castle.
Yeah, definitely could look to do that. One thing to note, though, is LucifroN's going for a double archery range this early on. Sorry, Wham is going for a double archery range this early on, which is a bit curious, especially, you know, not only the fact that he's doing that as the Holy Roman Empire, but on a map like this, where defense is going to be so easy, it seems a little bit strange that he would do that. I wonder what he's got up his sleeve here.
I'm curious, too. Especially because, as we discussed, LucifroN could fall back to the safety of his base. He could wall up a little, making it very difficult for those archers to even get close to the longbows. There's going to be, of course, Network of Castles aura, buffing the longbows from LucifroN. And I feel like, unless he actually backs it up with either a lot of horsemen or maybe battering rams, those archers by themselves, they won't be able to do much.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking the exact same thing. And I guess one of the things to note, though, is Wham is dropping the blacksmith down. And where there's a blacksmith, there are upgrades. And we start to see that ranged armor coming through now for him. Expect him to move into ranged attack as well. And don't be surprised if you see that siege engineering coming out. So, a little bit of, I guess you could say something that's not done by the book. We don't normally see the Holy Roman Empire, you know, going for a ram rush on the English in the feudal age. But I guess it's mountain clearing, so you never know how these maps are going to go down.
I am not sure if I like this or not. He's building up decent numbers of archers, but you see LucifroN will have a massive buff from the Network of Castles. He's adding men-at-arms, something that Wham doesn't have a direct response to, something that will be a great unit to soak up arrow fire with. And while Wham is spending his resources on military upgrades, LucifroN is getting eco upgrades, so he's pulling ahead more and more when it comes to that resource income. Or, well, he will start pulling ahead when that lumberjacking upgrade really starts kicking in. Right now, it's a still slightly better eco for Wham, but don't forget, he's got a terrific Aachen Chapel, so part of the reason why LucifroN is a little bit behind is because of that.
Let's go check in with the Aachen Chapel. I want to see what those villages look like at the moment. Because, well, it's beautiful. That is... I mean, that's just... That right there, it's something that they talk about as being one of the most beautiful sights you'll ever see. An Aachen Chapel with that many resources underneath it. It's the stuff dreams are made of. All right, well, eco upgrade's really not coming through for LucifroN. I mean, he's got the double broad axe. We don't see the wheelbarrow through just yet, but he's looking to pick up his blacksmith upgrades as well. We do see the ranged attack coming through for both of these players currently. So, as we suspected with Wham, where there are blacksmiths, there are upgrades, and the upgrades will come through. But do we see a siege engineering coming through at the moment, or at least shortly? Because he's got the resources in the bank to do it. No eco upgrades just yet.
I think he is changing plans here. If siege engineering was ever on the menu, I think it no longer is. I think he saw the size of LucifroN's army, and he's realizing that he will just trade armies, he won't be able to protect the Ram. Instead, he's banking up resources, and he's doing what the HRE needs to do here in this matchup against the English. Beat them to Castle Age, yoink the relics. You have 2 guaranteed relics right next to your TC. And then once you get Castle Age, get those upgrades in, even the Archer upgrades at this point, and then you have a great chance of pushing this.
Yeah, it looks exactly like what he's going to be doing here. And you can see those eco numbers climbing right now. He's definitely decided to put the pedal to the metal. He's stopped making units, well, to a lesser extent. I mean, we can see that he's still got 1 Archer in the queue, 1 Horseman in the queue. And I love the way that he's posturing with these Horsemen as well. Just going to be delaying any kind of push that comes out from LucifroN here. We don't see any sign of siege engineering at this point, so that aggression, that death push that we do inevitably see in these feudal age fights is going to be stalled out at least for the moment, and expect to see that click up coming through from Wham. Does he go Burgrave? Does he go Regnitz? Let's find out, because he's about to click it any second now.
My guess is a Regnitz. He's got a lot of army, and he wants to get the maximum value out of those relics. A Burgrave could work, but do you really need infantry when you have this many horsemen, when you have this many archers? Yeah, it's gotta be the Regnitz.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, honestly. And games can go longer on this map, and he could look for something like a keep in the middle of the map, throw a relic in it, get your cannon emplacement, throw down, do the classic salami play, get all of your cannon emplacements down there, and of course throw down that Elsbach for good measure.
Yeah, and this is the eco power that you have here for the HRE. It's not like LucifroN did anything wrong. In fact, he did all the right things. It's just HRE having crazy eco. And you see reinforcements will be picked off. Wham is buying a lot of time for himself. LucifroN wants to push this as Wham is reaching Castle Age, but this is a so well defendable spot tower trying to be built here, but the archers should be able to push away the longbows for the time being. Should secure the tower position.
He really needs to get this up, but look at the villager kills coming through. He's taken out 6 so far. He continues losing more. Manages to pick off a couple more, but takes out a total of 6, which is some pretty decent numbers there. But now those relics are going to get picked up. Now they're on the bottom side here of the base, so he should be able to force them to remain idle for a little bit longer here. Numbers still yet to build. We see men-at-arms coming out for LucifroN now, so he's going to be able to look to dive down on that position underneath the town center. We can see him beginning to move forward now. The longbowmen teeing off towards each of those horsemen. Upgrades on the way through now. Veterancy on those horsemen, veterancy on the archers. But it's going to take some time before those upgrades are through, and a couple of torches get thrown at the town center in the wrong direction. You're going to be throwing those torches at units, my friends. And now those numbers are really starting to dwindle for Wham on the defense. He's down to 20, less than 20 military units here, but he is in the castle age. One thing to note, though, is he doesn't have a huge food income, which means with a lack of food income, you're going to have a lack of units. But fortunately, looks like the spearman numbers have dropped to 0, and that's going to allow these horsemen to clean up this longbowman mass. And all that remain are a bunch of men-at-arms that just start screaming at their enemy like, hey, get back here, I need to hit you with my sword slowly.
You say this, but look at Wham's food and wood income. He's out of resources. He's got no units in queue. It looked good for him for a brief moment, but he lost his army and there is nothing else coming out from him. On the other side, LucifroN keeps adding units, And out of nowhere, Wham is in a terrible position. He's down 10 villagers, he's outnumbered 4-1, and he's got basically no resource income to make army from.
It's not the best of positions. We can see that now the longbows and the men-at-arms around the backside of the base are going to start to idle this out. But even if 1 or 2 knights come out here, he should be fine. And we can see the villagers really starting to struggle here. Idling out the farmers, idling out the wood line, the gold. Everything is idle right now for Wham. Look how many idle villagers he's got. We're talking 21 idle villagers. The man's only got 31 villagers. Prelate goes down just as he tries to pick up the relic. He's holding on for dear life. That's the first relic. We'll make it safely to the Regnitz. He's going to throw down a market over here. He's got 700 gold in the bank. This will give him a little bit of an opportunity here to get out a potential knight or 2 extra. But we do see Spearmen are now in production for LucifroN as well.
Yeah, if those Spearmen make it there, those Knights will be insufficient. Those Knights have to pick up so many of those longbows. There's an isolated group to the north. That's the target right now. That's a good move from Wham to clean this up. Even then, though, he lost a bunch of villagers, and I think the worst is yet to come because LucifroN is about to get to Castle Age himself.
Yeah, look at these villager kills that are coming through now. Has he got his textile upgrade at the very least? It feels like he's got it, but I don't know whether he's actually got it.
Yeah, he did.
All right, so he should be fine for the most part. Though he has lost 14 villagers, 15 villagers. I'm not going to count them because if I do, I fear that I will be jinxing him each time that I do, but 16 villagers? We're counting right now. Counting with Drongo. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the educational stream. We're counting with Drongo and Litter.
I love how he's using those longbows. He's not fighting those knights. He knows he cannot beat them. Oh, he's choosing the wrong way, actually. Villagers made an escape. That could have been terrible for Wham. He at least gets away with a couple of villagers, but to what avail? There is just nothing left of his eco.
Man-at-Arms doesn't get converted, and he pulls the relic a little bit closer to his side, even though the prelate does go down. So it's that slow transition away from the relic in the middle of the map, coming towards his side. White Tower also going to be coming up in the base now of LucifroN, so not even looking for a King's Palace.
Yeah, notice the positioning. He doesn't want to throw away this Castle Age. He doesn't want to go anywhere aggressive where the Knights could potentially stop that landmark. He knows that he has done a lot of damage, just needs to make it to Castle Age, needs to start making his own Knights, get his own upgrades, and once that happens, he's going to be in a prime position to win this game.
All right, well, the eco upgrades for LucifroN are starting to come through. He's got his classic 15 minutes wheelbarrow coming in now. I mean, I can't really say it's a classic 15-minute LucifroN wheelbarrow when Wham doesn't have a single eco upgrade yet. But I guess he's playing the Holy Roman Empire, and that gives him a little bit more flexibility in his economy. Spear's going to be able to come out, meet these knights, repel them back for the moment. And we head back to the drawing board as the relics are still being slowly picked up here.
Yeah, that's one of the things that could still give a shot for Wham. That's the fact that he's got 2 relics already. Plus, he's got the Aachen Chapel still. Most of his eco is still boosted. So despite the fact that he's down by 20 vills, the resource income actually favors Wham if you take a look at the top of the screen. So, while he has taken a tremendous amount of damage, he's still alive on 1 foot.
Yeah, good call. Prelate's going to be able to get some decent healing in here. He's still got that relic in the middle of the map. Now, I expect LucifroN's going to be looking to challenge this very, very soon with a Monk out here. We'll have to see how he goes about playing it. But I don't think Wham's going to be going for any snipes. It looks like the relic will get picked up safely by Wham. So he's going to be up to 3 relics now, which is not bad for a map like this. And he actually stands on the sacred site for a little bit of time, though. Just letting his opponent know, hey, I've taken the relic. Sorry. and heads back to the pavilion. But do we see a potential sacred site contest coming through here for Wham? I think it's possible.
I think if there's anyone that's really thinking about it, it's LucifroN. He's just now making his first Monk. Wham doesn't want to fight directly into the spears. Looks like he will take this engagement, feels like he's got the advantage, but the spearmen are still around, and I don't know if this is going to be a cost-efficient fight for him.
Definitely not. Those spearmen have got their veterancy upgrade through now, so even if you manage to take them out, it feels like you've just lost so much. And sure, he's going to clean up the longbows, but the spearmen are just going to continue to reinforce in this position, and the longbow number will never, ever drop to 0. So overall, I think that was a really good trade there for LucifroN.
Yeah, he lost a couple of spears in exchange for 3 or 4 knights, and those knights are still very pricey for Wham. I would love to see a tower closer to the middle from LucifroN to just extend the network of castles aura. Whereas for Wham, it's getting challenging for him. LucifroN is walling up. It would be lovely if some of those knights could do some raiding, chip away at the villager count. That would probably be one of the tickets for Wham back into this game. Other thing is securing eco upgrades, which is something that he's doing right now. And I'm starting to wonder if he's actually flirting with Imperial Age. Feels a little dangerous, but he isn't in an easy spot. And if he can get to Imperial with the Pass of Schwabia, he can recover it very quickly.
Can we have a look at the food economy back here for Wham? How many farms has he got down? Because that's normally the indicator for me for when someone's kind of cleared for takeoff for Imperial. If they've got a big farming economy, it can very quickly sneak up on you, that Imperial Age, but his economy is not the biggest here. Only 8 farms at the moment. Not a whole lot of space to add more in either. So it makes me think, even though you mentioned he was flirting with the idea of Imperial, if he's going to have to do it, he's going to have to fork out a lot of resources for it. Or at least shift over some of that gold into food.
Yeah, I'm actually curious what he's going to do with all that gold. He's floating a lot of that. Could buy some food, but it's going to get increasingly difficult to do so. He is having the mobility advantage, and if he finds a way into LucifroN's base, that could be disastrous for LucifroN. In fact, I would dare to say that he could consider just diving to the knights, and if he trades these knights to 15 villagers or so, that's good value.
Well, let's see if he's going to be able to do it. He's got the white tower to contest with here on the back line. Of course, it's positioned very close towards that town center. So, got to be so careful diving on the defense. Just simply because, well, it hurts. Let's just say that much.
Vam bought a lot of food, and now he's at 1100. He's still banking up resources. I think he's trying to go Imperial, but he wants to ensure that LucifroN can't attack him while he's doing that. So he's just going to posture here with the knights, pull back LucifroN's army, and this is what kind of shelters him as he's going up to Imperial.
He's also going for a mango, which I think is such a smart move. Doesn't cost any food, costs a little bit of gold, but then once he gets Imperial, I suspect he's probably going to go Swabia here. Seems a little bit irresponsible to go for Elsbach, especially considering the position of the enemy. You go Swabia, you play it safe. Still got 9 minutes on your Sacred Victory. We've seen Wham contest Sacred Sites at 1 minute to go, and I suspect that as long as he's got a Bombard out, he's going to be absolutely fine in dealing with a keep on this Sacred Site.
Yeah, if you're Wham, what you want to do... Well, if you're LucifroN, what you want to do is fortify the middle and start going Springles like a madman. Because as you said, for Wham, he will need... Uh-oh. I don't think he knows about the keep. Yeah, that was a nasty surprise for him. He's just now realizing that his opponent is fortifying the middle. And even though he's going to have Bombards, if LucifroN has a couple of Springles out there, it's going to be very difficult to challenge that keep.
I don't know if I agree with that, Lidakor, because you've got to remember that we've got Culverin that are going to be possible for Wham. He's playing the Holy Roman Empire, so he's not going to need to get his Roller Shutter Trigger upgrade. He doesn't have to expand all that population space on Springolds. It's very simple for him. He makes a Culverin, and he's able to take out, what, 3 Springolds, 2 Springolds easily. And we see straight away the Culverin comes into queue. So with this, he's going to be able to put himself in a really strong position. So if LucifroN wants to defend this, I've got a sneaky suspicion he's going to have to go absolutely ham on Springolds and outnumber those Culverin like 3 to 1. Which is very, very hard to do.
But yeah, you're right. Like, he needs mass Springolds to deal with the Culverins and the Bombards.
Yeah. And for anybody, you know, who's saying, okay, but at the end of the day, big Springold shots coming in on that Mango. A little bit of an interesting timing right here. Coming in quite early. The Knight's out of position. Not going to be able to clean up that back line. You can see that the Springold together with the Longbowmen are going to be able to do some pretty decent work back here. And an idle economy going to be coming out once again. More villages going to be going down. Culverin coming out, manages to hit the Springold, but if it loses its life, that's a lot of resources that are going to be thrown down. You can see the archers here for Wham trying to defend it. That's going to be 1,000 resources that go down. There's a part of me that just thinks, you know what? It wasn't worth having the Culverin pop out when it did. It was just a waste of resources, and he does eventually lose it. Yeah, this is a tough spot now for Wham because he's lost that Culve.
Offense is the best defense, says LucifroN, and he's right. He just traded off the army knowing that, as you said, if you get rid of the Bombards, if you get rid of the Culverins, it's going to take so much more time and energy for Wham to push this. The Knights were attacking his base, so they weren't here to help out. Now they will clean this up. But when the dust settles, the timer will be at 5.5 minutes, and Wham will be without any Culverins at this point to deal with the Springles.
He does have a Bombard out, though, and this means that his tempo is still good, because you're tied. Largely, the Holy Roman Empire at this point is tied to how much siege they can get out on the field. And that's going to be a key determining factor in this. But, oh my god, it starts to get even worse now. LucifroN starting to stonewall up the front of the sacred site, which means now all of a sudden, if you want to try and get through onto this sacred site, you're going to have to go through my stone walls first, baby. Look at this push coming out. If he's able to realize this in time, he's going to be able to deny this. As long as he's able to get behind the walls. Just remember that if he can block that one segment, he'll be in a really good spot, but he's not able to. Bombard going to be able to deny it, though. He says, not today, my friend. Keep that stone wall away from me.
LucifroN is sitting on 1,500 gold. He's got a huge resource bank. Needs to turn that into units ASAP. Because, as you said, the tech advantage is on the side of Wham. LucifroN has already lost a game with just 40 seconds remaining on the Sacred Site timer. He wants to avoid that here. And for that, he needs a lot of anti-siege, because there will be a second Bombard soon from Wham. He's got Culverins coming, he's got Mangonels coming. He won't be able to hold if he's outnumbered here with Costlage units only.
Yeah, to be honest, I still kind of like Wham's spot. He needs to go into a second Bombard here, though, and he'll also need to go into a second Culverin. And then the question is going to be, how does he defend this? So you could look for something like Men-at-Arms. I think Men-at-Arms are pretty solid here. But his food economy is not the best. If we take a look in his base once again, how many farms does he still have? Because at last check, he was on 8 farms. I fear that he may not be that many more than this. He might have extended those out around the Swabia. So still only 8 farms in the back of the base for him. So this is going to be the issue. The issue is that the enemy's got a whole bunch of melee units. How do you deal with these melee units?
It's tricky, right? It's spearmen mostly, so archers will work, but new men-at-arms are coming in. I feel like one of the things that you could do here is go multiple Mangonels and maybe defend them with some crossbows. Those aren't as food-heavy as your knights would be, and it would be difficult for LucifroN to fight against Culverins and Mangonels. Although he's up to 6 Springolds in a second, and it's only 1 Culverin against it. Wham will be up to 3 very shortly, but for Wham, he is going to have the siege advantage. You just need to make sure you protect those siege weapons. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. This is where I feel like he needs to get a second Bombard out rather than a third Culverin. Needs to get that second Bombard out. Because you have somewhat diminishing returns on the Culverin because you're only as good as your micro is. So, like, you can micro 1 Culverin with perfect efficiency. You can micro 2 with, 95% efficiency. The third one comes in and now you're talking 80% efficiency. The fourth one comes in and it drops to 50%. Can you really keep maximum uptime on 4 Culverins? And he's going for 4 Culvs now. So really looking to try and win that Cull fight. But we can see LucifroN has spammed out the Springald. So doing the right thing on the defense here. It's going to be tough now that you think about it for Wham to actually contest this. And I think it all went back to just losing that Culverin because he lost so much tempo out of that. By losing that Culverin, he loses the ability to go into an additional Bombard early. And because of that, his speed sieges, or the speed of his siege is slowed. Because the speed of his siege is slowed, now you've still got this stone wall that you're dealing with. And you can see the struggle that's unfolding because of this. All right, well, the numbers here on the front line starting to be shredded. You can see the Springolds on the back managing to take off towards those Culverin, but the Culverin numbers starting to dwindle right now. He's down to 1 remaining Culverin. The second one's just popped out. The first one still holding it down on the front line. The Bombard is out, but the Springolds are going to look to try and focus it down. All of the villagers have been taken out on the front line, and Lord Doubt has smiled upon this keep. And with the keep not coming up, less than 3 minutes remain for this sacred victory to eventually unfold. So many villagers went down on that keep, and it feels like it is all over Red Rover.
It seems like it. Momentum is heavily in the favor of LucifroN. He could push out if he wanted to. I don't think he needs to, although he could just keep posturing here, denying that keep forever. And as you mentioned, so much momentum was lost by Wham losing that first Culverin. There was 6 minutes on the timer when that happened. Now we are down to 2 minutes as he tried to push again. And yeah, now you see LucifroN is doing something else here, posturing on the walls, making it even more difficult to push, and Wham knows it. He is going to tap out of this one, and LucifroN, he won't lose a second game where he had the sacred sites.
Yeah, definitely learning a lot from that game. Congratulations, guys, to LucifroN. It looked like a pretty good performance in that last game. I think the big thing was taking out that Culverin. taking out that Culverin hurt Wham so much. Now, obviously, there were a lot of events in that game that hurt Wham. We lost a lot of villagers when that age up came through. He lost a lot of villagers trying to drop down that keep. But I think he was somewhat insulated with the Palace of Swabia. It really just came down to the Sacred Victory. And what really captured that Sacred Victory was the fact that as soon as that Culverin was taken out, a lot of the siege tempo there from Wham was lost. And because of that, it was just a very easy fight for LucifroN at the end. So well played to him. Congratulations go over to him with that victory. And that definitely puts him closer to securing, I think he's looking to secure that second place spot.